I'm Gordon Oliver. I am the business editor at the Columbian. Thank you for coming. And we have more great information to share with you today. And I just wanted to introduce myself and thank you for coming. This is sponsored by the Columbian, and as it's already been noted, the management group has sponsored these small group sessions, so we thank them for that. Today we have 4 panelists, and Linda Reid will introduce them, and I'll briefly introduce Linda. Linda is now at U.S. Bank. She's had a long career in banking here in Clark County and is a Vancouver native. She works as a vice president and client manager for U.S. Bank, and she works on developing new commercial loan business. So she's well-versed in the topics that our panelists will be discussing, and she will introduce them, and then we'll get on with their comments and your questions. Thank you.
Okay, I don't know if you guys know this, but I'm going to introduce you one at a time, and then you'll do your speech. So first we're going to start with Eric. We're going to start with leasing and office space here in Clark County. Eric started Eric Fuller & Associates in 1997 to offer clients quality commercial services in the Portland metropolitan area. Eric has been the leading commercial real estate professional in Clark County for over 30 years and has an active role in many of Clark County's major real estate transactions. Eric has been responsible for the sale of hundreds of acres of land, leasing office and warehouse space, and the sale of ownership property in Clark County. In addition, Eric provides redevelopment and pre-leasing services for new projects. Eric has a laundry list of involvement here. He's licensed broker both in Oregon and Washington and holds the designation of Certified Commercial Investment Member. His professional affiliations include the Realtors Association of Oregon and Washington, CREDC, Greater Vancouver Chamber of Commerce, Responsible Growth Forum, Commercial Association of Realtors, Identity Clark County, Fort Vancouver National Trust, and on and on. And I want to know more about the International Council of Shopping Centers. So, Eric?
Thank you. Well, I must admit that I'm not in Ken Fisher's camp. I still worry about money and need more money. So any business you can bring to me, we're open for business. As you indicated, I've been in the commercial real estate business in Southwest Washington for the last 30 years, and it's been a very good experience. And I think I've learned one thing during that tenure, that the commercial real estate market is not the leading indicator during an economic recovery cycle. The commercial real estate market really follows good news, and good economic news really drives the demand factors in the commercial real estate market. And we certainly had our fair share of good news recently, and we heard again this morning from Scott Bailey. The job growth, which is the single leading indicator of a healthy commercial real estate market, has been good. Scott indicated that Southwest Washington had a 4% job growth, and coming out into the recovery, that's a significant increase. And as jobs add, the demand for real estate almost across the board is increased. There is discussion and talk about the wages and jobs have kind of stagnated, and there's concern whether wages will increase. But we do know fundamentally that as more jobs are added or more employees are looking at expanding and adding jobs, wages will increase. It is a supply-demand equation, and I believe that the wages will start increasing as more jobs are brought to Clark County with new companies moving here and existing companies expanding, which is a good portion of our growth market. They also talked about one of the indicators for a healthy commercial real estate market is that low unemployment rate, and that's kind of a two-edged sword. As the unemployment rate goes down, that's a sign of a healthy recovery. But businesses outside looking to Clark County look at the availability of skilled labor force as one of those criteria for selecting Clark County. So when that unemployment rate gets down to sub 4 or 3%, then people are concerned if the labor pool is going to be sufficient to allow their expansion or job or company relocation to the areas. And also the good news in retail sales, anytime you have a 10% growth in retail sales year over year, you have consumer confidence, and that bodes well, obviously, for the retail market, but also for the distribution chain, the supply chain supplying the retail markets. And in commercial real estate, one of our fundamentals that provides us expansion and growth is interest rates, and specifically low stable interest rates. And there's no doubt that we've had that positive environment over the last couple of years, and it looks like in the near future, interest rates will continue to be steady and at a relatively historic low rate. One of the new variables in this recovery that we haven't had in previous recoveries recently is the fuel price at the pump today. And who would have thought a year ago we'd be paying $2.25 a gallon for fuel? And that added purchasing power to the consumer is one of the generators of the retail sales and just the consumer confidence in the expansion in that industry. And that savings, if it's prolonged, is hundreds of millions of dollars a year of added consumption. And as we know, the GNP of the United States is driven by consumer consumption. So having that added income and added disposable income to families because of the savings at the gas pump will continue to fuel the economic, commercial real estate economic recovery. Now let me touch a little bit on the office, the retail, and the industrial sectors of the commercial real estate market. And unfortunately, I'm going to use some numbers, so try to stay with me, and hopefully we don't get buried in the minutiae of numbers here. And let me start with the office market in Clark County. The total office market, and when I talk about office market, these are multi-tenant buildings. The total office market in Clark County has a 10.7% vacancy rate. That's approximately 1.1 million square feet that are vacant in Clark County that give options to tenant for expansion or locating to our community. Within that office market, we segment it to Class A, B, and C. And the Class A market, which are generally the newer buildings, steel and glass and multi-story buildings. The Class A vacancy rate within Clark County is 16.7%, almost 380,000, or about 35% of the vacancy is in that Class A segment of the market. So the Class A market has not kept up, is not performed as well as the total office market in Clark County. In downtown Vancouver, the Class A market vacancy rate is about 15%. So again, it's done better than the Class A market countywide, but not as well as the overall office market. There's about 138,000 square feet of vacancy in the downtown market. As a comparison, the Portland Class A market, the Portland Business District Class A market, is about 9.9% vacant, 2.2 million square feet. So just when anybody's circling the Portland International Airport looking for a place to land, there's 3.5 million square feet of office product in the Portland metropolitan area. Last year, we did see a positive absorption of office product across the board. That means we leased more than space became a vacant or new space came to the market. And that's a sign, a trending sign of a healthy office market. Rental rates, I think, are fair to say, the landlord is getting closer to their asking rents. In fact, we see rental rates increasing. The Class A rental rate on average last year was $21.50 on a full service basis, and that's a significant increase from 2 years ago. And equally as important to the landlord, not so important to the tenant, is that the landlord concessions in office leasing are decreasing significantly. Those concessions like free rent, overstandard TIs, moving allowance, other concessions that tenants traditionally have been asking for landlords. Landlords are pushing that back and not providing those concessions as much as they did previously. In the Clark County, there is virtually no new office construction in the pipeline, and our current vacancy rates, specifically in the Class A side, the Class A segment of the market, indicate there's 2 or 3 years of absorption. So we're probably going to see people coming to the drawing boards, looking out several years, and start talking about new Class A office construction. Now, I do think there's an opportunity and there's a gap potential for office construction in Clark County. And if you think about Clark County as the Portland metropolitan area, even though some people think we ought to think about ourselves only, but in the context of the Portland metropolitan area, Clark County only has an 8% share of the total inventory in the Portland metropolitan area of Class A office. And if you think about our population base, our job base of that 20, 25, even 30%, I believe that gap of our fair share will provide some incentives and momentum to projects, specifically like the waterfront project in Vancouver, to start attracting, hopefully, a disproportionate share of the future growth in Class A office within the Portland metropolitan area. The forecast in the office market is vacancy rates will trend down. Landlords, it'll become a landlord market, and that means the leverage in lease negotiations will be on the landlord's side of the equation. There will be fewer options for tenants to select, and there will be positive lease-up absorption during 2015. We were asked the question earlier, why then on the Banfield, Fisher Investments, Integra, and other major relocation of office requirements to Clark County, why hasn't that driven the rates, vacancy rates down? And very simply, those corporate relocations don't affect the multi-tenant market. Those are user buildings, and they generally are single-tenant user buildings where they consume their own real estate. Although they've added 750,000 square feet of office use within Clark County and hundreds of jobs, it doesn't affect that multi-tenant office market that we're talking about. So let me switch to the retail market quickly. Vacancy rate 7.7%, 1,300,000 square feet of space in Clark County. We did have a positive absorption year last year. Again, more space leased than became vacant or new space. And rental rates have been steady and increasing. And again, the landlord concessions have been decreasing on the retail market. And the retail market is also segmented into several categories. You got the mall market, you got the power centers, you got the grocery anchored centers with shop space, the unanchored strip centers, and et cetera. But altogether, a pretty successful year in 14 of some positive absorption. There is not a lot of new construction forecasted in 15. We've read, or you've all read about the Evergreen Crossing, which is the Walmart Center at 4th Plain and Ward Road. Walmart's under construction, and we assume that the shadow retail anchored space next to Walmart called Evergreen Crossing will be under construction this year, and that will be 50, 60, 70,000 square feet of new multi-tenant retail coming to the market. The forecast in the retail market is vacancy rates will also trend down. Again, more demand than new product. It will be also a landlord's market in lease negotiations with fewer concessions by the landlord. Retailers will also encounter fewer options in the prime locations within Clark County, and there will be a positive lease absorption as we go forward. And again, if that gas price stays down or even gets lower, that additional retail consumption, because of that savings, will continue to drive that retail demand in Clark County. In the industrial market, that market you don't see much and we don't talk about, those big buildings that trucks come in and out of, people make widgets in. The industrial market has a vacancy rate in Clark County today of 4%. And when you get below 5% vacancy rates, those numbers can change very quickly of going to very low vacancy rates, which provide very few options for business expansion or new business, industrial businesses coming to Clark County. There's less than 600,000 square feet of vacant industrial property, multi-tenant industrial property available in Clark County. And compared to Portland, Portland has a vacancy rate of 4.8%, so Clark County is actually outperforming the metropolitan area within that industrial segment of the market. Rental rates, guess what, are going up quickly. Landlords are generally getting their asking rate, and there are few, if any, tenant concessions. And just because of the lack of supply. The key note is that you're an existing tenant or a tenant looking at this market, start early, because you're going to have fewer options and it's going to be more costly and it's going to be more difficult to put the transaction together. So don't pick up the phone and say, I want to be someplace in 30 days or 60 days. Give yourself 6, 9, even 12 months to get there. Let me just summarize 2015 forecast. It will be, again, a good news in the market. It will be a strong commercial real estate market, and we'll start talking about now the shortage of inventory rather than the vacancies are out there. And again, the key message is start early, because it'll be a little bit more difficult. Thank you.
Okay, before you forget everything Eric had to say, we'll open it up for a couple questions now, and then if you have any at the end, we can take them also. So does anybody have a question for Eric?
Eric, what do you think the shell rate's going to be on industrial?
In industrial new construction, we'll be asking 55 cents on a shell building, where 2 years ago they were asking 35 cents. And in the industrial market, that's a huge increase in operating cost.
I have a question on industrial. Do you know why there hasn't been more construction to this point?
No, and it's a good question. We obviously haven't marketed the demand well enough. There's 200,000, 300,000 square feet in the pipeline. That's about a year's absorption. So that 4% will get some relief because there is, but we should have 500,000 square feet in the pipeline or more.
Anybody else? All right, a lot of these topics are going to cross over, so if any other questions come up, we'll give some to Eric at the end. So next we have Ryan Hurley. Ryan started Hurley Development during the downturn in 2008, and he arrived downtown here in 2009 with his first downtown project being the Source Climbing Wall. Ryan, you're subject to Google because that's where I had to go to find out information, so chime in. He's since purchased the former Copeland's, purchased and resold the former Copeland's building and its annex, has purchased and renovated the former Main Street location that was Boyd's 88-cent store, and purchased the Pacific Tower building at 915 Broadway, and now is working on the Sparks building?
We're finished.
Right?
Yeah, we're a couple weeks away.
Yeah. So being on the board of the Downtown Association, we love Ryan. So Ryan.
All right. Thanks. I don't even know how I got up here. I was on my way to Torque for some coffee this morning. It's obviously no fun to go after Eric, so I'm going to deflate my football here and bring my game up a little bit. Yeah, so, I've been doing development for 15 years. Go Seahawks, by the way. One thing I've learned in this real estate, whether, no matter what you're doing, there's a funny cartoon, actually, that shows Dorothy and the Wicked Witch standing next to each other there in Oz, and there's the house that fell on her sister, right? And her little ruby slippers and striped socks are sticking out the bottom of it. And the Wicked Witch says, to Dorothy, there's this caption. She says, my sister never got the hang of flipping houses, and it's like so true. I mean, it just solidifies whether you're building houses or buying real estate in some way, shape, or form. It's risky. It's a risky business, and it's volatile. And I realize as a commercial development arm up here, there's sort of an expectation that I would, I guess, share some technical insight on some of the commercial sectors like industrial, office that we do, and retail, and I'll briefly do that. But really, what I want to communicate is kind of a unique perspective, a perspective that our company has really adopted over these last 6 years that we've been doing things. And development, first of all, developer, the word, the synonymous words to those are creator, innovator, originator. They're inventor. We're all developers at some level. Whether you're a banker, whether you're building homes, flipping them, whether you're a city planner, whether you're an engineer, an architect, in some way, shape, or form, we're the development community. And that's really what I want to talk to you today is kind of a unique perspective on that. So first of all, this volatility thing is hard because the truth is, and I don't want to discredit data at all, because we look at data a lot. We look at numbers. That's a big source of how we move forward. But the truth is when we're looking at historical trends or current conditions, it's like driving a car looking in the rearview mirror out the side. It's hard to sort of see where things are going. I guess what I would say is the question is not where we've been or where we're at, or even where we're going. It's more is where do we, like Ken Fisher was saying, want to go. We as the development community are driving the car. We're the ones taking it there. We take it there through our buildings and through our streets, and we're telling a story through that process. And where for us, and by the way, truthfully, when you look at trends in the past, do we really want to go where we've been? That's that volatility where it's up and down and the curves behind us. And I guess the opportunity and the perspective that I want to share this morning, I think, is a way to hedge those that somewhat volatility. We've been fairly successful through the downturn, and I think it's the key of really how we're going to be successful moving forward. For us, we've realized this perspective through a manifested shift, massive shift, actually, in people's expectations, led in large part by the millennial generation. These are the ones that are, for those of you that don't know, are 18 to 35, and they are a larger segment than baby boomers. They hold 21% of the nation's discretionary spending, and they have unique characteristics in their worldview. Many of these folks are not interested in housing, in cars. What they are interested in is life. They're not interested necessarily in just getting a paycheck from their employment or their employer. They're not interested in just police and fire in their community. They really are looking, their expectation is that their homes and their work and their communities that they're shopping in and things that they're doing are pouring into that life and not detracting from it. And I think this is a story, as we're kind of talking about forecasts, this trend is really changing. And it's something that we as a development community need to think about and respond to as we, because truthfully it's having a major effect on the urbanized pockets. We look at urban settings nationwide, and what we're seeing is businesses, especially these young millennial businesses, being drawn to things, keywords, things like culture, which would be like art, design. We're seeing that they're drawn to experience of where they're going to get collaboration, creativity, fresh venues that they can enjoy, and things like community, where there's events and organizations that are structuring connectivity. You see this a lot in Mississippi, in Portland. That was a dead zone, a dead market. And interestingly, it wasn't a bunch of developers that went in there and said, hey, let's make this a great place. They wouldn't touch it. But what you saw is because the rents were so high in the highly urbanized area, they came over and said, okay, the rents are lower, we're going to start a bunch of food shops. And so when one successfully started, another, and it became an exponential growth, and then people started saying, man, I don't just love going to the restaurant, I love being a part of it. And so they started coming in, and of course development has massively been driven as an opportunity over there. And I guess as we're talking about trends and we're chasing them, it's so hard to paddle behind a wave versus being on the front side of that wave. And I think this is a big opportunity for Clark County. One thing that I really appreciate about the Millennials view when they talk about their companies is everything they do, from their website to the design of their product to the design of their interior space, they believe it's telling a story. They believe it's saying something, and that story is specifically about who they are, about what they do. And I think it's the same as we're driving the car for development. I think it's the same for us as the development community. We're pushing a story. We're pushing a story of where our city's going, of what she offers. And I guess to give you a real example of this opportunity is our company said, okay, what do we want Vancouver to look like, downtown specifically? And we've got projects all across the county, but downtown specifically. We started identifying certain businesses that we thought play into the culture and the core of downtown. One of those, and this is not an exhaustive list, but it was the creative high-tech companies. So we began to identify these companies. Number one, they're energetic, they're young, they're vibrant. Two, they love art, they love culture, they love that connectedness, and which is good for our downtown core. And then they have good disposable discretionary income, which is a powerful thing for the assisting businesses down here. And so to date, in the 6 years, we've been able to locate Gravitate, Blue Blazes, WooBox, and a handful of others actually in this area, which we think are benefiting the downtown area and the other businesses that are growing here. We looked at restaurants, the food culture. I think it's absolutely critical, especially in downtown, to see more and more food driven down here, because as we all know, we're all going out a lot more and buying food in that social experience. And so we had the opportunity, when we looked around, we saw Thai Orchid. And Thai Orchid's a great place. They were a successful established restaurant, but not really a prominent part of the downtown culture. So when the opportunity came to work with them, I jumped on it, spent time with their owner, sitting down, listening to their vision, understanding their story, where they wanted to go. We helped them with financing, we helped them with vision, we helped them with development, we helped them with that whole perspective. And you have to understand, the perspective here that I'm trying to provide is we weren't looking at our bottom line. We were looking at their success, which benefited our bottom line. That restaurant, it was so interesting, has doubled their income, their gross sales. Their employees are happier, the people, their customers are happier. And what happened is they moved from one corner of the street to another corner of the street, same block, same square footage. But because we were revitalizing that vision and pouring into that, I think they were able to tell their story better, if that makes sense. And what's cool, twofold, is that the place that they were in got redeveloped by another restaurant and is a part of that culture now too. I guess on that same thoughtful approach, we've been able to bring nonprofits downtown that are specifically, we identified, that are serving our community. New venues like the rock climbing gym. They weren't looking at downtown, but we were as Fisher was saying, Mr. Fisher was saying, we were out selling. We were out seeking them, saying, no, don't go on that site. Come down here, because we felt like that was a new creative venue that we needed downtown. We've been able to work with even like Olson Engineering. That's a staple company, 45 years in business in 2 different locations. But by meeting with them and spending a long time with them, talking about their vision, talking about how they want to share their story the next 20 years going forward, we help craft the idea for them to move together and to talk about design and to talk about a flow of their company and their employment. And we think it's going to be a powerful change for their company. I guess what I'm trying to sort of get to is that while profit numbers data is important, it cannot be the sole summary of our efforts. We have to be thinking more of the success of others, because that is what this is very selfish in nature, because when I have other tenants coming in around, they're benefiting my existing tenants. They're making my buildings approximately 200,000 square feet now in downtown area that are coming in and say, we want to be there because Thai work is there. We love walking around to them. It is exponential in how the growth ends up occurring, because we're looking more to their success. When they are successful, their people buy houses, their people buy cars, their people end up spending money in our economy, and so forth and so on. All right, am I almost out of time here? Okay, so real quick, yeah, I do get excited about this stuff. So real quick, just to kind of piggyback on Eric's, I would say everything he said was right now. I do have a couple little things. So yeah, I mean, we believe that we're going to see a vibrant uptick this year in particular. Growing housing market stimulates that. It's pretty simple. We think that the commercial sector follows behind 12 to 18 months, I think, religiously. Obviously, that doesn't take into exterior factors that terrorists and other things that end up derailing stuff. But more rooftops equal more people, more services are required in that area, and so forth. I would say that we're going to see the strongest growth on the east side, strong employment-based areas, and I think to a degree we're going to see quite a bit downtown as well. The majority of this growth, as Eric indicated, outside of the the owner-occupied one construction building, is going to be obviously absorbed in new current inventories, and I wouldn't expect to see any spec construction realistically in earnest for retail and office this year until those vacancies decline and get to a point where the rents are sufficient enough to pay for new construction. With that said, I think there's going to be a lag, and I think there's going to be a lag downtown in office around the 217 mark, and I think we're already seeing the indications of a lag in industrial for sure. And so our company's looking at that, making decisions. We currently have a $25 million project on the east side. Now we're heavily involved in and working on just as big of a project downtown, which we haven't announced yet. But the two questions I want to leave you with are this, rather than to look at the traditional story of where we've been, are one, how can you as a development community, make the story better for Vancouver in what you do? And two, how would we rather be chasing the trends or setting them? That's the question. So thank you.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Ryan right now? Oh, you want to leak what your next project is?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
There's one.
One
Oh,
question. Is there any particular reason that you have made in Vancouver, downtown Vancouver?
Well, in Vancouver alone, I grew up here, so I don't plan on leaving, so I want it to do well. In downtown, it's got solid infrastructure, a good group of people who are devoted to its success. Projects like Waterfront, we have billions. We did have more billions with the bridge, but billions slated for growth and infrastructure. And I think that it's a adolescent city at best, and has a lot of potential to be mature, and I want to be a part of shaping that. It's important to me as my kids grow up here. So,
Yeah,
thanks.
thank you very much. Okay, back here.
With all the new development downtown and all the apartments that are going in with fewer parking spaces than they have the actual, where are we going to park?
I thought you'd know. I have no idea. Well, again, when you look at Portland, our parking ratio is, we're in luxury on this side. Parking has to be addressed per the projects. And truth is, if you don't think through that as the developer side, you're going to lose out on tenants, clients. And so parking, I think, is going to be addressed one at a time until it gets to a point where it makes sense for the city to co-op again and build structures. So.
I think there's an opening on a parking committee with the city. Okay, so let's move from commercial to residential a little bit. So John Blom is going to come up. He is the managing broker for Hasson Company's Realtors office here in Vancouver. He's been selling real estate for 5 years and has closed over $35 million in residential real estate sales. In 2015, that's this year, you're president-elect at Clark County Realtors Association, and also serves on numerous other committees here in town. Outside of real estate, he's a member of the Clark County Planning Commission, on the board of the Columbia River Mental Health Services, and the Snowman Foundation, a local nonprofit that provides musical instruments and education to children who might not otherwise have access. John is also a local here in Vancouver.
So as I was thinking about what I wanted to come up here and talk about, I thought I can come and throw a whole bunch of numbers and stats and see how many in the room I can put to sleep. But I decided instead to tell a story of some clients that I worked with last year that really represent the good and the bad challenges in the upcoming market. Okay? So these clients, I met them originally 4 years ago at an open house. They were very typical first-time home buyer kind of people. They were my age. They wanted something in a nice neighborhood, something they could put some sweat equity into and start building their family. Found them a house. It was a short sale, as everything pretty much was in 2010. They bought it and did the next 3 years doing what young people do. They got better jobs, they fixed up the house, and they got pregnant. So they called me last May and said, John, we need to move. What's the market like? Okay, pause the story there for a second. One of the biggest challenges in the real estate market has been low inventory over the last few years. Inventory is the measure of if nothing came on the market, how long would it take for what's on the market to be gone, to sell out? Anything between 4 and 6 months is considered a balanced, a stable, a healthy market. Anything higher than that is a buyer's market. Anything lower than that is a seller's market. And we've hovered most of last year in the 3-month range. If you pull out houses that are under construction, we're going to hear from Kelly, things that are listed but not actually built, not able to move in, sometimes that number's dipped down into the 2s. So it's been a good time to sell a house for the last 18 months or so. Talked about that with these clients. There was a particularly low shortage of houses similar to theirs, a single level on a nice lot, good neighborhood. Earlier in the year, they had considered saying, so they were refinancing, their house had appraised for $260,000, which is 80 over what they paid for it in 2010. Looking at the lack of houses similar to theirs, I said, let's test the market. Let's put it on at $270,000. We'll know pretty quick if that's too high. The husband kind of laughed and said, there's no way, it's just appraised for $260,000, but whatever, we'll try it for a week, we'll listen to you. Week later, multiple offers, and we accepted an offer at $300,000. That was not necessarily the norm, but there is, I want to say nationally, 40% of home sales last year were at full price or higher than full price. Multiple offer situations were, in many cases, in many neighborhoods, the norm. That's what's driven the price increases over the last 3 years. We've had, on average, about a 7% annual average price increase over the last 3 years. So that's what's good about the market. Inventory is driving prices up. That's good for people that have equity. It is a challenge for buyers, though. So the second part is of these clients is that they are in many ways representative of all the people that actually aren't in the market right now. We've heard Scott earlier talk about millennials and the challenges that they're having with declined wages. They are putting off home ownership. First-time home buyers last year was 32% of all sales nationally. Historically, that number has been about 40%. They're having a harder time getting those better-paying jobs that allow them to buy. They're coming out with more student loan debt. So one of the challenges in the market is going to be this lack of first-time home buyers, that they buy the houses that then allow people to move up. So they buy the $200,000 house that allows that seller to move up and buy the $400,000 house, and so on and so forth. So that lack of first-time home buyers is going to be one of the challenges in the market on the supply side. Last thing that I think is going to be important to look at is interest rates. And I think a lot of people don't fully understand the impact that an interest rate increase could have. For every 1% that interest rates go up, it's about a 10% increase in buying power. It's a lot like the New England Patriots equipment manager can have a deflationary effect. Thanks, Ryan, for stealing my New England Patriots joke. I appreciate that. So for example, someone looking at a $400,000 house now, if rates went up 1% over the course of the next year, to have that same payment, they'd now be looking at a $360,000, $370,000 house. depending on taxes and other things along those lines. So that could be a challenge for the market going ahead. Now, we've been hearing for years, interest rates are going to go up, interest rates are going to go up. And I really didn't want to come up and say that because everyone's been saying it for 3 years, but at some point I think it likely will happen. So that's just something to kind of keep an eye on in the year ahead in the forecast. So 3 things to look for. One is going to be inventory levels. In some ways, inventory levels are very much tied to interest rates. And this is something not so much in the year ahead, but in the next 5 to 10 years ahead. If interest rates go up, people are going to be less likely to put their house on the market because they're going to have that payment shock when they go to buy. Over the last 30 years, if you look at it, at almost any time period, someone who's selling a house and buying has been getting a better interest rate than when they originally bought the house. So now with prices rising, and if interest rates go up, someone might be moving out of a $300,000 payment into a $400,000 or $500,000 payment with a higher interest rate, which makes it even higher. Seattle had a real issue with that of people that want to move up but simply can't because of the price increase combined with when rates did tick up a little bit last year, it just priced them out of that move up market. So that's something else to keep an eye on. So inventory, as long as inventories stay low, and I think they will, we're going to see prices go up. One of the things to watch is going to be, do millennials finally enter the market? A lot of people think that this upcoming year will be the year that they do. Another buyer demand side element to watch is the people that were out of the market in 2009, 2010 because of short sales. Those people are now 4 years removed from that, people that were kind of that first wave of short sales and foreclosures. They're finally going to be able to start re-entering the market. For a long time during the downturn, there was always talk about this shadow inventory, all of these foreclosed houses that weren't on the market. I think now there's a potential for a shadow demand of these people that are renting right now, but they want to buy. They went through some financial hard times, but they're stable now. Once lending guidelines allow them to get back into the market, they're going to be coming in. That's something else that could drive prices up. So challenge of low inventory, potential of millennials entering the market, potential of the shadow demand coming into the market, and then interest rates, seeing what interest rates do. That's the big unknown, the big variable. So that's what I have.
All right, good job. All right, any questions for John? I have one. I'll start. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, you need to finish your story. So they had $300,000 was on sale of their house. How much do they have to spend on the next one?
They bought $400,000 house.
Okay, as we encourage businesses to come over and they're looking at our workforce and we want their workforce to be here, how's this low inventory going to help all those people we want to bring over here find homes? It's maybe a better question for Kelly. We'll get to you.
Kelly's going to fix that.
Kelly's going to build more homes. Yeah.
You know, there needs to be incentive for people to move up. They need to be able to sell their house, you know, whatever level they're at. They need to be able to find what it is that they want to move into. I think we certainly have more people moving into the area than we do leaving the area. I would say if it wasn't for Oregon retirees and people moving here from California, I'd be out of business. So that influx of people, we need to have new houses coming up that are going to accommodate that flow.
Okay.
With the low inventory, what is the mix price range of those? So how many would be considered entry level, let's say 250, middle of that? Because I think that directly will affect bringing businesses in, depending on what that schedule is.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 things on that. That price level has seen the biggest gains. You know, what you used to be able to get for $175 has gone up much higher than the overall market rate. And that's both because of the lack of inventory, and it also makes a great investment product. So those those houses have been snatched up really quickly by both first-time home buyers and investors. So yes, inventory levels then are especially low there. And that's the challenge is going to be new construction can't really fit that model. The price of dirt is going up. I'm sure Kelly might talk a little bit about that. The other challenge is demographics, like Ryan talked about. You know, those first-time home buyers want to be a little bit closer in. The neighborhoods that maybe can accommodate that are further and further out. So you have a mix where what people want and what's available don't necessarily align, and you throw low inventory on top of that. It's a challenge that we're going to have to figure out.
This might be a combination question for both of you and Kelly. I've noticed that we've had a lot of new construction, and I'd say what I call the upper end, 450, 500,000 and up. Who's buying those homes? I mean, I've that inventory is going. Is that people moving up, or is that people coming in, like you said, from Portland, California?
My experience has been that's very heavily California buyers, but also Oregon retirees as well. You know, you can retire on an Oregon pension, come over here and get a 9.5% pay increase, and
So
suddenly
that,
you're.
as of right now, you don't feel like it is people moving up in the area as much as the influx of people coming into the area?
Yeah, and one other group I'd throw in there are people, Fisher Investments kind of employees that are relocating to here for jobs, so not just retirees, but also those groups that are coming in. I think we'll see that from Banfield as well. You know, their average salary, I want to say it was $130 for their employees coming over. So they'll be the people that'll buy those $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 houses as well.
We've seen a lot of that activity in Maine.
Yeah. If you look at those floor plans too, and Kelly gets to this, that's a lot of master on the main, catering to the retiring, the aging population.
Thank you.
And I would say to add to that, from our perspective, it's probably both. We're seeing the people moving in from out of state, but we're also definitely seeing those that are selling and downsizing, and I'll talk a little bit more about that.
Downsizing too.
Selling a larger home, taking the equity and putting it into a nice, of it's maybe a single level home.
Nice, brand new, upgraded home.
Exactly, yeah.
Thank you.
We also talk about millennials not necessarily wanting to jump into the home ownership market. So what is vacancy rates, and I'm looking at Carmen, what are vacancy rates in the apartment world out there?
Can I comment on that? Right?
Yeah.
'Cause I
Yeah.
would maybe have a little bit different take. I think that they do or they will enter the housing market, but because they're delaying household formation, they're getting married later, they're having kids later, they're not doing it at 27, 28, they're doing it at 33, 34. And I've had, anecdotally, a lot of clients that are coming over from that, urban, they got a cool little loft in Portland, they have a kid, and now they're moving into Hawkinson because they can get a house there with a nice yard. So I think that transition is happening. It may not be in that 25 to 34 range, it might be a little bit later, but it's a delay that needs to get caught up to see the market really improve.
But our vacancy rates in apartments are also low, right?
Very low.
Very low and rents are high.
And rents are high, yes, okay. Okay, so we're gonna have Kelly come up then and talk about a solution to all of that. In 1987, Kelly and his brother Chris started New Tradition Homes with the dream to build new homes of high quality, enduring design, and lasting value. New Tradition Homes has become the regional leader in developing innovative and energy-efficient construction technologies. Through ongoing research and dedication, they have continued to build homes that are healthier, more durable, and more efficient than standard new homes. Every new Tradition home is Energy Star and Built Green certified. The certification means that every home is third-party verified to meet the high standards. New Tradition Homes is one of the largest home builders in Washington State. Kelly?
Thank you. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you, Gordon, for inviting me, and hopefully I can give you a little perspective from the eyes of a home builder. And we are the largest privately owned home builder in Clark County. Some might say that that's kind of like being the tallest of the seven dwarfs. But truthfully, we love building homes, and we have for over 25 years. Started as a family business, and today we're now into the third generation of our children being involved in the business. So today, I'd like to start maybe with a national picture, just a few stats that would help us maybe to gain some perspective locally. And right now, this week, in fact, in Las Vegas is the International Builders Show. And we're seeing some predictions coming out of there that are actually very bullish from a national perspective. In fact, they're predicting like a 26% growth in new home starts from the National Association of Home Builders. And that's pretty aggressive. But when you put it in a perspective of what would be a normal marketplace, nationally we would see about 1.3 to 1.4 million homes built a year, and if we could call it normal. Okay, that would be a healthy supply. Today, if those predictions come true in 2015, that would be about 804,000 homes for 2015 nationally. So we're still only, as an industry, about 2/3 recovered, let's say. Okay, so when we look at Clark County, keep that in mind. I think you'll see that the pattern is very similar here in Clark County. Also, when we look at what's going to happen for home prices nationally, we have seen in 2013 a pretty big increase, double digits. In 2014, that kind of settled down, which I think is healthy, right? Close to 5% increase in home values. Clark County was actually a little higher than that. I still think it's healthy though. But the economists, a survey of 100 economists said that if you look out 3 to 5 years, or let's say 5 years, that they project that home values will kind of settle into that 3 to 5% increase in value. And we know that that's healthy. That's where it should be. Even as a home builder, it was fun to build 500 homes, but we would rather have steady, stable growth. And affordability is, of course, something we're concerned about too. So when we look at a Clark County picture, there were 900 and some homes built in Clark County in 2014. So that's actually our best year since 2007 for home builders. So the Great Recession, which a home builder will never forget, and we will tell our grandchildren about this. The Great Recession actually, I think, technically ended in 2009, but in Clark County in home building, 2011 was actually our worst year. And 2014 was when we started to actually see profits. So you can see where kind of the direction is going is positive, and I guess that's the message I want to have today too, is that we're going in the right direction. And I'll talk about affordability a little bit too as we go further on, but there's 3 things kind of that I wanted to maybe touch on as we finish up today. And first of all, just these are trends that we're seeing by the traffic that we have to our website, by the traffic that comes to our model homes, by the sales that we have, and by the projections that we're looking at for the next year. So one thing is that new neighborhoods are now coming out of the ground. The dirt is being turned into new neighborhoods. The second thing we'll talk about a little bit is the buyers that are coming back into the marketplace for new homes. And the third thing, one of our favorite topics at New Tradition, is just to talk about the innovations in new home building, specifically green and energy efficiency. So under new developments, there's a term that we had to learn in our industry. We're builders, right? We like to build things and create homes, and that's really what we do best. But over the last 7 years, we've had to learn a lot of things about the business side of the business too. But we developed a lot of lots in 2005, thinking that we were going to need an inventory of 300 to 500 homes a year just for our company, right? So what happened is the market turned, the inventory the sales dropped in half, and the prices dropped by 1/3. All of a sudden, you have all of this inventory that needs to be absorbed in this new home marketplace. So the banks call this legacy land or legacy lots. That's a term we learned. And we realized that we had legacy lots that needed to be developed or needed to be built on and sold. You may have lived in a neighborhood that was a legacy neighborhood where there was 1 or 2 homes built and there were 100 empty lots, right? So what we're seeing now in 2015 is that the lots, those legacy lots, are mostly absorbed, right? They're mostly absorbed and been built out, and new neighborhoods are coming into the marketplace, and that's an exciting prospect for all of us in the industry. It's exciting because it means that the banks are making money, the builders can start to make money, the developers can make money, and let's just say that the past is the past, and now we can look forward, and when we talk about forecasting, we always want to look forward. So one of our concerns, again, has been mentioned a couple times, is affordability. As these new lots come into the marketplace, there's kind of of course, a supply and demand cycle, and we're absorbing roughly 1,000 lots a year just in Clark County. And we have seen, though, price inflation on land. So, for example, a 5,000 or 7,500 or 10,000 square foot lot has increased about $10,000 a year over the last 3 years, which is about 10 or 15% of the total lot price, okay? So that does raise a concern about affordability. And when you talk about land development too, we would be remiss if we didn't also just talk about the cost of developing land is going up. So it's not just that the dirt costs more or that land sellers are greedy or anything like that. A lot of it is just the cost of the engineering and the development of the land is going up because of regulation. Stormwater regulations in the state of Washington are probably the strictest in the country, maybe besides California. Okay, so that means a cost, and of course the other costs that are just part of the cost of a new home would be the governmental fees, the local fees, and people may not realize, but a home, by the time you buy the permit and pay the fees for the permits, you might spend $25,000 in some of our local Clark County cities just for the permits, just to get ready to start. So, but anyway, I want to share just a little bit. One community that you'll see as you look around the county, Camas, Ridgefield, but even Hawkinson, we have a neighborhood now for the first time in over a decade, a neighborhood being developed in the Hawkinson School District. And it's exciting for us. There's 60 lots in the first phase. The average home price somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 starting price. And we just brought this neighborhood to market this year, and there were 60 lots available. We had, excuse me, an interest list of over 70 names. And before we even recorded the neighborhood, we had 15 sales in that neighborhood. So very positive sign as we look forward there too. Thank you. Thank you. So next I'll talk about new buyers in the marketplace. And as home builders, we don't necessarily track specifically the demographics, but I can say that kind of we have a broad picture. And talking to our lenders and salespeople, we can kind of give you a picture of who's buying the homes. We build homes everywhere from $250,000 to $600,000, and the average home price today is about $375,000 in Clark County, new home for our company. So the buyers are coming from, let's just divide them into 3 areas. 40% of our home buyers are what we would call the baby boomers or the empty nesters or the moved down buyers, okay? That's kind of what we were talking about a little bit earlier. People that are selling their home, kids have gone to college, they're selling their home, they're taking that equity out of that home, and they're saying, I want a really nice home, but I'd rather have it on a single level. Maybe it's even a smaller lot, but I still want it to be very nicely amenitized. I want it to have the gourmet kitchen. I want to have the luxury bath. And maybe contrary to what you might read in the media, it's not necessarily builders that are saying, we're going to go out and try to find all these buyers that are going to spend $500,000, but it's actually the buyers that have come to the builders and said, this is what we're looking for, and the builders have said, let's try to meet the need. Because really that's what we all do in our businesses, is we try to meet the need of the marketplace. And so that's 40% of the buyers that we see today. 50% of the buyers today probably fall demographically into more the Generation X. So, and this was the group that was hardest hit by the recession. These were the people that bought homes at the peak, and now they've sold those homes or they lost those homes, but after 3 or 4 years they've been able to recover, and now they are coming back into the marketplace and they're trying to find a new or improved housing for their families. So that's about half of who we're building for today. And the last group is one we've heard talked about quite a bit, is what we refer to as the Millennial Group, those that are in their 18 to 34 age, and or first-time buyers, whatever age they may be. And right now today, this is only about 10% of our buyers. Okay, in the marketplace, like let's say a healthy marketplace, first-time home buyers should be about 25%. And then we come again to that affordability issue. Today in Clark County, if you want to spend $200,000 and buy a home, you are going to buy an existing home, like we talked about, or you're going to buy a town home, or you're going to buy maybe a narrow home on a narrow lot, which are great too. But it's different than when my wife and I bought our first home 25 years ago, and you could buy the home for $60,000 or $70,000 for a starter home. Today it's about $200,000. So times have changed, and that is definitely a challenge. So the millennial buyer too, just anecdotally, is we have seen so much research on millennial buyers that we really don't know what they're going to buy. That's what I've determined anyway. It just seems like, we get a report that they're going to do this and going to do that. But I think that time will tell as they pay off their college debt, as they get into the workforce. A third of them are living, as of last year, in the parents' basements, right? So I think we'll see over the next 5 or 10 years, like John said, too, that they will begin to form families. They will begin to move into the marketplace for all of us.
Yep.
So lastly, excuse me, we'll talk a little bit in closing about the innovations in home building and specifically green and energy efficient construction because it is a really exciting trend that has developed over the last 10 years. Our company, New Tradition, has built over 1,000 green certified homes. And what this really means is it's a home that's energy efficient, of course, more durable, it's going to last longer, more comfortable because it's healthier indoor air in that, and it really doesn't have to cost a lot more. In fact, should save money over the lifetime of the home. So you can see, and what we've found is as we've learned more about what this means as a home builder, that we're able to build a better product today than we were, one that will last longer. And a home should last for generations, right? So that's kind of become really part of our core philosophy. And so in just a practical sense, a green or an energy efficient home very simply might be something like, instead of having the big tank water heater, right, 40 or 50 gallons or sometimes 80 gallons of water that just kind of percolates all day long, right, burning energy. Instead of that, a new home would have a tankless water heater that only heats the water as you need it, but never actually runs out of water. I mean, that's cool, right? And we're finding that this isn't just a millennial buyer thing. This is all buyers, across all the spectrum, because people want to save money, they want to feel comfortable, and they want to know that their investment is good, because a home, as you know, is our biggest investment. And so the industry, I think, needs to embrace the innovations that are there, and we're seeing it. A study nationally, if you go back a few years, like 2013, it was only about 37% of the builders that were embracing green technology and energy efficiency. But now we're seeing that as you project forward into 2018, that about 84% of the builders said that they will do some of their projects built to that standard. So this trend, we believe, is here to stay. And I think we may have even reached, some studies have said that we've reached a tipping point where it's an expectation. It's an expectation that my home would be built to this standard, similar to our expectations for food quality and air quality and other things. So one more specific that I'll share and start wrapping this up. But we're also seeing in new home construction a way to score the home, okay? A way to rate the home. And this is called the HERS score, or the HERS index, HERS, Home Energy Rating System, okay? So if you have a car, we all have a car probably, and when you bought that car, you looked at the miles per gallon, right? So homes now have a way to actually measure not the miles per gallon, but the home energy use of that home. And we can actually do this with technology today. We can predict how much a home will cost to use, in monthly energy costs going forward, right? So that's what the HERS score is. So we can't see the future, but we predict that people will like to see that, because if a new home or an existing home can be compared, right, by their HERS score, at least you can kind of factor that into your purchase. Because I love old homes too, but if my older home is going to cost me 3 times just to operate what a new home might cost, then I'm going to think twice about buying an older home, right? Or at least I'm going to think about how I'm going to upgrade that. So this HERS score, the way it works is that a code-built home would be at 100. That's the score, okay? A zero energy home, a home that uses less energy than it produces by solar or some other means, is 0. And an existing home that's built previously, or maybe let's say 10 years ago, might be a score of 130. So every home can have a score somewhere between 0 and 150, let's say, for example. So if a new green or energy efficient home comes in at a 50, that means it's 50% more efficient than a score of 100. So it's really pretty simple. And we're starting to see that the buyers are interested as they look at the different floor plans, the sizes of the homes, and just in finding out, well, what's the score? And so I think you'll see that more as you look forward. Lastly, I'll just share the story of one of our recent home buyers. This was, in fact, some of you may actually know this buyer. He, if you've ever watched the Discovery Channel, the show Gold Rush, anyone ever seen that show? So we, what you may not know is one of the reality actors in this show actually lives in Sandy, Oregon, and his name is Greg on the show. That's his real name. And anyway, we built a home for him. He came to us and had heard about our company, emailed us and said, hey, would you consider building a home for us in Sandy? And we did. And Greg's just kind of a down-to-earth guy. You know, he works with the dirt. He makes a living on a reality show today, digging for gold. And but he was interested in having a home that wasn't going to cost an arm and a leg to operate. So we built this home for him. And in Oregon, they have a different scoring system, but similar to the HERS rating. And his home, less than 3,000 feet, costs a little bit more than $100 a month for total energy operating costs for a family of 4. So I was visiting with Greg a month ago and just asking him about his home and how it was going. And Greg said, it was kind of funny for me, but he said that he actually gets excited when his PG&E bill comes in, and he gets giddy when he opens it. So for us, that's exciting to see that the work that we put into the homes pays off in a small way, even like that. So, and I guess just in closing, from a home builder's perspective, we're optimistic as we look forward to Clark County, the real estate market. And it's hard for us to throw a number at it, but we definitely see a growth somewhere in the 10 to 20% range as we look forward into this upcoming year. So thank you for your time.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Kelly? I'd like to know, Kelly, how much land does New Tradition have to build on in 2015?
We have about 150 lots in inventory.
And do you see a problem picking up any more?
It's been a challenge. We're looking at it, and we're starting to look, of course, at 2016.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you still see a lot of legacy lot subdivisions sitting out there?
Very few. Very few that are developed and sitting. There may be a few where an investor bought it and they're holding the raw land, but as far as developed lots, very few.
How do the new subdivisions differ from the pre-recession subdivisions?
That's a good question. In many ways, they're the same. In fact, I'd say probably in most ways they're the same. But what you're seeing is the new designs and new technology, the new designs of construction. So maybe there's a difference more in the home design too.
On this, a comment and a question for Eric, but on the comment is living and working here in Vancouver with the great employment being better and the great low energy prices, I find it really hard to meet sort of meaningful relationship with Portland anymore. So I wonder how that's going to affect all of you. Maybe time from now, it seems like I can't deal with Portland. I can't get there. I can't get back. I have a meeting at noon. I can't have a meeting back here because I don't know when I'll be back. So that's the reality. But the reality is there's probably some opportunities about having to be president. But Ken Fisher coming in this morning, fascinating, one high-paying job, upstart community, and he was talking about one of the things that I heard in here. I don't know if you really heard or understood. And I heard this before. Like him, they want to land their private jet. So that's my question to Eric. private jet then that will bring those high-paying jobs?
Is there any chance? Yes, but I can't imagine it's a high probability of siting a fixed aircraft landing strip in North Clark County. It's going to be a difficult challenge.
It seems like I remember some years ago, Casey Powell that moved over.
Yes.
One of his biggest reasons that I think he's not here today is he couldn't land his plane there.
Yeah.
He had money to spend and high-paying jobs. We do all this discussion about wanting to bring in high-paying jobs. And one of the things that our speaker today said that what he really wants is an airport, not an international airport, but just to be able to commute from
Yeah.
here, Seattle,
Yeah.
here. So we need to do here.
I suspect it's an opportunity, but I expect it's like citing anything else today. It's difficult to do those massive private-public partnership situations. But on traffic, and I cross the bridge probably every day, and we do have to time ourselves. But in the worst time, it's still relatively easy to commute compared to the competition that we're looking at recruiting businesses. And as Mr. Fisher said this morning, if you get centric to Clark County and stay on this side of Clark County, we do not have a traffic problem. We have an inner region traffic problem, but we don't have a traffic problem in Clark County.
All right. Okay, I'd like to thank you guys all for attending our session and our panelists today, but we are out of time. Thank you.